I don't think there was ever, no, I know there was never a doubt as to what I wanted to do with my life. It was really simple, even though I played sports and did a lot of other things. I knew from, I don't know, as far as I can remember, from the time I sat and watched Yankee Doodle Dandy when I think I was 4 or 5, I knew what I wanted to do. And the pinnacle, if you will, the grand prize is when you are on Broadway. I mean, that's what the goal was. And even 7, 8 years old, I remember imagining myself being on Johnny Carson talking about my Academy Awards or receiving my Tony Award or whatever that was. I'd envisioned it. I knew what I was going to say. I envisioned the joy that I would have being celebrity, being famous, and being rewarded with accolades and awards. So that was never a doubt. So as I was getting older, I continued to have this dream, this fantasy, and these goals of, winning a Tony Award. And when I was 9, my parents had been fighting quite a bit. It was pretty obvious. And one particular night, I heard them arguing, and I went out for some reason, at 9 years old, I thought that my opinion was going to matter. And I must have hit a nerve with my dad, because his response to whatever I was saying was some derogatory comments that a 9-year-old boy receiving from his father is something that you wouldn't wish on anybody. So that was sort of a beginning of a downward spiral internally, emotionally, and mentally. But I was replacing that those insecurities and those emotions with the goal. I knew that when I got to New York and when I got my Broadway shows and when I won my awards, that all that anger and all that sadness would disappear, and I could make everybody's life better, and I would prove him wrong and prove everybody that I was as good as I wanted to be. When I was in high school and in college, it got worse internally, and I had this image, if you remember from one of the Batman movies, Christian Bale is trying to scale out of that tunnel, and he has just a little ledge to try to scale up. Well, that's what my life felt like. I always felt like I was on the edge, and every time something went wrong, I felt like I was always falling, and there was no bottom. It was an abyss. And when things were good, I felt like, oh, okay, good. I believe in God. He's starting to bless me. But when things would go wrong, I'd feel like I must have failed. So I continued to put this finish line as the thing that would make me happy. Fast forward to I had been auditioning. I'd been living in New York, and I finally booked my Broadway show. I'd worked throughout the country and stuff, but I did it. I got the Broadway gig, and I will never forget. I was doing Grease on Broadway, and during the show, I remember doing the show and saying to myself, slow down, because it felt like I was looking at a watercolor painting because of the excitement, the energy, and the adrenaline, and it was just such an amazing feeling. I finally arrived, and this was going to be the start of everything, and my life had changed. And again, internally, I still dealt with a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, and tried to replace that with a lot of things that were not appropriate. A lot of relationships and other things that, whether it was substances or people, I was trying to replace that abyss. So on my Broadway debut, did the show, so excited, finished taking off my last costume, got dressed, walked out the stage door, and to this day, I know exactly how it felt. I know the temperature of the air. I remember walking out of the stage door of my first Broadway show and thinking, that didn't do it. It was all a sham. It was all, I didn't change. I didn't feel any better. I was actually shooting an independent film during the day and doing the show at night. And none of that filled in that void. So when something went wrong, I still fell. I would still fall into this abyss. So all that glitters is gold was quite a disappointment, and I was deceived by all that. And the best part was, I continued to work as an actor for most of my life, and I would do odd jobs here and there, bartending, things like that. But no matter what, it was never enough. Being a working actor is something that you strive for, more than just the one-hit wonder. You strive to be able to work the rest of your life doing the thing you love and doing the things, using the gifts that you've been given. But it doesn't replace that void, doesn't fix the black abyss. So I'll never forget that I was rehearsing the show, and I was actually going through my divorce and really struggling. Obviously, things had not gotten better, and I arrived at the theater early, as I always would do, to stretch and warm up and things like that. And at my dressing room spot, there was a little card, and it had, I can't remember the Bible verse, but I flipped it over to see if somebody had written something on it, and it was one of my fellow actors who, on the card, it said, "Can I pray for you?" And like I said, I believed that there was a God, but that was as far as it went, and I'd gone to church when I was younger a handful of times. So I got dressed in my warm-ups, and I went into the dance room to stretch and warm up, and then she came into the room and asked if I had seen the card, and I said yes. And I said, I don't know what you want me to do. I don't know if you need my permission to pray. I don't know. Go ahead, pray. I didn't know what that involved. And so before she did anything, she said, well, let me ask you, do you believe in God? And I said, yeah, I believe in God. And she said, well, do you know that he loves you? And my response was, well, I believe in God, but I think he's pretty mad at me and I'm pretty mad at him, because I blamed my whole life, all the bad, I blamed on him, but because I felt like he was cursing me, or he was punishing me for all the bad things I had done. And so like I said, I think he's pretty mad at me and I'm pretty mad at him. And she said, but do you know that he loves you? And being a guy, I guess, I crossed my arms and I said, well, I don't know. But internally, the second time she said, do you know that he loves you? I had felt a change like I'd never felt before. And I felt this tingle start to emanate in my body. And I'd never felt that before, because even though I heard the words and I wanted to deny what she said, I knew internally in my heart, in my soul, that she was right. And so we talked for a little while, and we just shared, I shared how I felt and why I felt like God wasn't happy with me. And the last thing she said was, I don't have all the answers, but if you come to my church, I promise you'll feel better. And I've repeated that a zillion times because I feel like that was the evangelist spirit that possessed me, was hearing those words, knowing that that's all it took to let people know that God loves you. So I said, why not? I got nothing to lose. And I went to church that Sunday, and it changed my life. And even though it didn't make things magically better right away, I learned that God is a God of process, and he's a God of story. And so much of my story only began there. The struggles or the challenges never changed. But the thing that did change is I never felt like I was on that edge anymore. I never felt like when something went wrong, I was falling into that abyss. I always felt like there's the ground right there, and I'm still on the ground. And there was finally a bottom to the darkness and to the sadness and to the anger. And I just don't know what life would be like without knowing that, and knowing that he loved me, and knowing that if it wasn't for someone coming to me and saying, come to my church, I promise you'll feel better, I don't know what life would be like.